That car was just absolutely incredible. It's basically my dream project, to build an aeroplane engined car just like that. I'm having to say goodbye to a few of my toys. The BSA is for sale, the bus is for sale. Basically, I'm trying my best to build an aero-engined Edwardian special. The Edwardians, you know that I'm dying to build one of these cars. That was the inspiration, John. It was cool, wasn't it?
It is awesome.
So between you and me, keep this quiet, but I have got the chassis. Well, it's happened. This is the very beginning of my aero-engined Edwardian project. It'd obviously been in the shed where it was hiding for a while. It was covered in stuff, and it was the most exciting moment of peeling off, gradually taking off all the old bits of junk that were on top of it, all the stuff that's on top of it, revealing this beautiful chassis that's just sitting there. It's dry, it's not rotten, it's in really, really nice condition. So the very next day, Smart Solutions turned up, the HIAB that I use for moving the Ranelers. He turned up, picked it up, strapped it onto it. It's slightly unconventional picking it up with a HIAB as opposed to a sort of, you know, roll-on trailer. But I knew he was in the area, I trust him, I know he'll be safe and careful, and it just worked out well. So then a day later, I was at the workshop, and then he turns up, and that's it. The first time I've seen it in the daylight. At this point, it does not even matter what's missing, what's you know, what state it's all in. I just fell in love. As soon as I saw it, I was like, yes, this is it. This is the one. Winched up in the air and dropped down outside the workshop. It was exciting, but I'm not going to lie, quite daunting, because I'm quite heavily financially invested now in this project. If you've been following the channel, my social media, you'll have noticed that I've been selling almost everything I own. The bus, my motorbike, my original Raneler, which I didn't really want to sell. Anything I can do to scramble together some money because of this. Now, before you start, please don't say, why aren't you going to do the Porsche, and I should be doing the Porsche. This is a very, very different project. I'm not getting rid of the Porsche. This Porsche is staying, and I'm carrying on with it as and when I can. But this was too good of an opportunity to turn down. 2.5 years ago, maybe, I was invited to Prescott, and I got a ride up the hill in the Romano Aero-Engine Special. My God, that's caught me by surprise. Okay. And that was it, I think. From then on, I was hooked. I'd been to members meeting a few years before and seen the likes of Duncan in his Fiat. Julian was there in his Sunbeam. I've met a few other people along the way who have had these cars, and I just kept getting a bit of an itch for kind of like, I'd love to build one of those. I'd love to build one of those. But I know next to nothing about this era of car. Classic cars, the Porsche, 50s, 60s, Volkswagens, that's kind of what I grew up with and what I know. This, I learned very quickly, is a whole nother ball game. Restoring one to original is one thing, because there's literature you can get and there's, you know, there's information out there. Turning one of these into a special race car is a whole nother kettle of fish. Early 1900s, 1900s to 1920s maybe is the era I'm kind of looking at. First World War kind of time. Car manufacturers were developing engines to go in aeroplanes for the war effort. And a few of those along the way found their way into car chassis, which then got taken all over the world for land speed record runs to try and be the fastest manufacturer. So Goodwood members meeting have a race called the SF Edge Trophy, which is invite only, but you get invited to the race if you've got an awesome car. There's various VSCC events over the country, all over the world actually, some good ones in France that I'm finding out. Put your Edwardian hat on and imagine you are in that time. So you have to get a chassis from that era, an aeroplane engine or an engine of some sort from that era. Every component has to be from pre-1918, roughly. You can't be going and putting a 1930s gearbox in it from a Bentley or something, because they didn't exist back then. And that even goes down to the body style with aerodynamics. The more research I'm doing into cars of that era, you could see the progression from sort of 1905, they're very square and boxy and have a grille like this, and very, like 1910 maybe they start getting a bit more streamlined. And then by 1918, they start getting the kind of fin out the back and more rounded, and you can see the progression and the development through the years. So you have to build the car, pick an era, pick a style, and build a car with that era in mind. Whether you've got a square boxy front and wicker seats and you're really sitting upright and the steering wheel's nearly flat, or if it's more streamlined and you're sitting down and a long bonnet with a long scoop on the back. Within this Edwardian era, there's lots of different styles. The start of the project needed to be the chassis. So I spent about 2 years just looking around, speaking to people, going to members meeting, going to events. Everyone I've spoken to, I will say, have been so helpful. Julian of Blockley Tyres, Duncan with his Fiat, they've all given so much time to me, with me just quizzing them on stupid things, because I'm starting from zero. Ivan is another person that's been really helpful. He's got a YouTube channel, so make sure you check it out. The channel is Shed Racing. I met him at Bewley a couple of years ago, and you all told me that I needed to go and meet him. So I saw him again at members meeting in his Peugeot and spent a long time talking to him about that. I've never had anything this old, never built a special and combined an engine with a gearbox and I've never done anything like this before. I found a couple of different chassis along the way, but they weren't complete and they were missing bits. One was just a bare chassis. I'm never going to be able to find all of the pieces that I need, because I don't actually know what I'm looking for, because I'm learning as I go. Duncan knew a friend of a friend had this sitting in his shed, and he hadn't done anything with it for a while. As soon as I found out that this was available and potentially for sale, I had to move. This was just perfect. Everyone I spoke to about it was like, yeah, that is an ideal chassis. That is exactly what you need. So it's like, perfect, I need to get this. But these things aren't cheap, sadly. So that's why the bikes, the camper van and the Branelets, everything's had to go. I'm selling everything I can. And now I've got a 1912 Rocher Schneider sitting in my workshop. And I'm so excited. So it's a 1912. It's a French car called a Rocher Schneider, like the Ferrero Rocher, which is the start of my project. It's right-hand drive, which is cool. You've got the accelerator on your foot, the clutch on your foot. The gear lever is on a lever up here outside the car, and then the brakes is also on the lever by hand, like a handbrake, but it's only for the back wheels. There's no front brakes, only the back wheels have got a brake. The body looks more complete than it is. It's mostly there, but it's completely rotten. The body is absolute trash, but it's the chassis and the running gear and the wheels and the hubs and the the gear linkage and the brake linkage, all of that sort of stuff is what I want, and that is all in really good condition. That means the engine search is on. Now I've got the chassis, I know the size of the chassis, the style of the chassis, I know what age it is. When engines become available, I can now measure and piece up and kind of eye up in my chassis. I'm at the stage where I'm just gathering parts, which don't make very good videos. So the Porsche and the pedal car are all still going to go and carry on, but there'll just be an Edwardian sitting in the corner. It takes years and years to piece together all of the components that you need to build something like this. Those amazing cars that you saw at members meeting racing around, every single one of those has been pieced together over hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hours and years of work, finding every little linkage and gear and sprocket and lever and building the body, making this, building the radiator, working out the gearing for the rear diff, for the axle, finding the wheels and the hull. There's so much involved in making these cars what they are. I've got a long road ahead of me, so don't worry, I'm still going to be getting on with all the other projects. This is just part of the channel now. Duncan with his Fiat and Julian with his Sunbeam have gone one way. They have original cars that were built by the manufacturers and are horrendously rare. It's one of one, the only ones that exist, the only ones that people built, and they've restored them back to as they would have been built by the manufacturer. You're rebuilding and you're restoring and you put it back to what it was, which is what I do a lot of. But the chances of me finding one of those is next to nothing, next to zero. Other people, like Ivan with his Peugeot, find in archives an old car built by a manufacturer, and he's built a replica of that. So he's got the chassis, he's got old photos of the car, gone through the steps of rebuilding every piece to look like that original car, which doesn't exist anymore. I imagine it was crashed and broken up. I don't really love the idea of building a replica because it's never going to be the real thing. I don't really fancy it. Nothing against anybody that's done that. I just don't really want to do it myself. What I would quite like to do is build a Ranelagh inspired race car. So if John Charles, who started Ranelagh, before they made wheeling machines, they were a coach builder. They built bodies for cars, Rolls Royce, Daimlers. So it's quite fitting to the body for this could be a Ranelagh body, like a Ranelagh inspired coach built body for the Ranelagh racing team. Any thoughts, or if you agree or you disagree, the debate is open. I welcome anyone's opinion, but I quite like the idea, whether it's John Charles Racing or Ranelagh Racing or the Ranelagh Rocket. I quite like the Ranelagh Rocket, to be honest, being a Rocher Schneider. When I first saw it as Rocher Schneider, me being stupidly dyslexic, I thought it was Rocket. I kept reading it as Rocket, but it's Rocher because it's French. I need an engine. I've had a few people reach out to me. I found a Hall Scott. I found about 5 Curtis engines, OX5s, the V8, but none of them are quite doing it for me. I don't know why. It's like they would work perfectly fine, and it would, be straightforward because Ivan has got Hall Scott 4-cylinder in his, so I could pick his brain and see how he's done it. But when I went to the race meetings and I saw 3 Hall Scotts and 3 or 4 OX5s, I kind of thought, wouldn't it be cool to do something different? Find some different obscure engine that is not necessarily massive, but just something different and a bit more unique. Their wheeling machines are unique, so I thought we could find something. So that is still up for debate. If anyone out there has got an Aero-Engine pre-1918, something obscure and something interesting that will fit in this, then let me know. It's taking up a huge amount of space in the workshop. And things are only going to get worse as I have to buy an expensive engine and then all the other bits, a gearbox and axles. It's going to be a big project. It's going to take some time, but look at that. What a start. Any ideas for engine combinations or body style? I'm all ears because at the moment we are brainstorming and anything's up for grabs. But if anyone out there knows anything about these cars, please get in touch. Is there an owners club? Anyone else got one? Rocher Schneider, this is 1912, it's a similar sort of era, would be great to hear from you. Any way of dating it, as I say, I'm starting to speak to the Veteran Car Club, the VCC, to try and see if they can help, if they've got anything. Anyone's got any literature, any way of dating, any information, or if they've got one, get in touch. I would love to hear it. I'm now in the Edwardian club. Most of the bits that are missing are in boxes. The big old flywheel, the rear brake shoes, the whole brake linkage is there. It's just in boxes and bits. So pretty much everything is there for a complete rolling chassis. The gearbox is my sticking point at the moment. I think that's going to depend which engine I get. But assuming I get a big aero engine, at least 200 horsepower, ideally something big, what gearbox am I going to put in this? Lots of Edwardians seem to have chain drive gearboxes. There would be big sprockets with chains running back to the back wheels. It's a good way of being able to gear it. So many questions at the moment I don't know the answers to, but this is how it's going to work. This is why it's going to sit here for a while and I'm not going to use it, because I'm not going to do anything with it, because I can't really do anything until I've got all the pieces, and the only way I was going to get all the pieces is to start somewhere, and this was the start. Hopefully I'll find an engine next. That will then dictate what I do for the drivetrain and the gearbox and the axle. Once I've got a lot of the pieces, then there'll be a lot of head scratching on how to put it all together. Yeah, it feels a bit surreal at the moment. Feels a bit strange, I'm not gonna lie. It's a bit odd, slightly very daunting, but you're such a helpful bunch. I'm sure there's lots of you out there that know more than me about these. So leave me a comment, get in touch, send me some links to websites and things I can read up. I've got some homework to do. But until next time, Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you then.